Hey, I'm Kirsten McGregor Crane from the University of Stirling, and I'm joined today by my colleague Charlie Bowling from the University of Glasgow and my colleague Christopher Crane from the University of Edinburgh. So today we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about studying in Scotland, some of the differences between Scotland and other parts of the UK, and also to give you some information about our wonderful universities. I'm actually going to pass on to Charlie to start some of the first slides. I hope you look forward to hearing from him now.
Thank you, Kirsten. As mentioned, I'm Charlie from the University of Glasgow. So this is just a short overview, as she said, of what it's like to study in Scotland, sort of both academically and sort of what it's like to live in Scotland as well, and covering the differences that you'll find between Scotland and other parts of the UK. Can I move the slides, or do you have to do that? I think you have to do that. I'll ask. um, so these are all the universities that we have in Scotland. So we have the highest concentration of universities in Europe. So the most universities per person. Most of them are within the central belt that you can see right in the middle. That's where our three universities are, Glasgow, Edinburgh, and Stirling. You also have a few on the east coast, such as Aberdeen and Robert Gordon, and then the Highlands and Islands that are spread throughout probably the most beautiful part of Scotland, sort of towards the northwest, and then the islands as well. So, why should students choose to study in Scotland? So, Scotland is inspiring, welcoming, and global. You may be able to tell from my accent, I am not from Scotland. I was born and raised just outside of London. But Scotland is definitely one of sort of the most welcoming and global places that I've had the fortune to live in. Everyone is made to feel welcome, regardless of where they come from. The people are incredibly friendly. And you have people here from all over the world as well, not just students, but people who've decided to come and make Scotland sort of their more permanent home as well. We have over 4,000 different degree combinations between our universities. Kirsten's going to go into a bit more detail as to sort of the degree structure and exactly how that's possible, particularly on an undergraduate level a bit later on. But this allows students to mix and match sort of multiple different subjects during their time with us, and even sort of do some proper cross-disciplinary work, mixing sciences with social sciences and arts and humanities as well. I've already covered point three. Yeah, we do have the highest concentration of universities within Europe. We have more than 52,000 international students spread through the universities within Scotland. And they come to us from over 180 different countries and territories worldwide. So if you have a world map and throw a dart somewhere, there will almost certainly be a student from that country studying at a university within Scotland. We also have very high levels of graduate employability as well. So they are among the highest from the UK. And a lot of this, particularly undergraduate, is to do with the degree structure that we use that gives students a much broader sort of knowledge base. So that is a key sort of a key benefit to choosing Scotland over other areas of the UK. Excuse me. So we have world-leading universities. So we'll come on, I think, in a couple of slides' time to sort of the different kinds of universities we have. But one of the benefits, I'm sure you will all already know how regulated the university sector is in the UK. So it doesn't really matter where students study, they get a world-class education. And the same is definitely true of Scotland. We have very high levels of student satisfaction. Again, I think the highest across the UK at universities within Scotland, and this takes into account more than just the academic side of things as well. So this also looks at sort of student life and what you can get up to outside of university as well. Our universities have partnerships with universities all over the world, so predominantly in other English-speaking countries, but also throughout Europe and other places. This allows students the chance to do study abroad as part of their degree, or even just sort of cross-country collaboration on different subjects as well. One of the key benefits to doing study abroad within Scotland, where the degree is already 4 years long, as Kirsten will come on to, it doesn't typically add any time onto the degree like it may do elsewhere. Our universities all offer excellent student support and welfare. That will be slightly different, obviously, depending on where students decide to study. But we do generally all pride ourselves on making life as easy as we can for our students and supporting them through their studies. We have an excellent public transport network within Scotland. I think the part we all shout about the most is that any students under the age of 22, or any people under the age of 22, sorry, can use every bus across all of Scotland for free. We have a very good train network, and Glasgow and Edinburgh airports link us really easily with the rest of the world as well, with direct flights between Istanbul and Edinburgh. So a bit more about our universities specifically, and why students should choose them. Apologies. So over 90% of full-time first degree leavers from Scottish universities are in employment or further study soon after graduating. So again, that's one of the highest numbers within the UK. Graduates from Scottish universities have the lowest level of graduate unemployment within the UK. Again, a lot of this will come back to the degree structure that Kirsten will come on to. I feel like I've said that about 100 times, but it is a really good selling point of our universities. So it is worth the wait, I promise. And then 86% of employers find Scottish university graduates to be well prepared for work. And this covers all of the study levels that we offer as well. And then we have three different kinds of universities. So we have the ancient universities, which are those which are a few hundred years old at minimum. The traditional universities, which sort of fall between maybe 100, 200 years old and a bit younger, and the modern institutions, which are, I think, probably the equivalent to the post-92 universities within England, who sort of typically will offer maybe more innovative and more technologically focused courses. And I think we have the examples of each one coming up next. So these are the four ancient universities within Scotland. So Aberdeen, Glasgow, Edinburgh, and St Andrews. A lot of these tend to sort of be more traditional in terms of what they offer, focusing on sort of more of the academic subjects, if you like. And they're all within very, very different sort of cities as well. So even amongst this small group of universities, there is something for everyone. We then have the traditional universities. So these are the ones that in England would probably count as quite old universities, but within Scotland, and in the context of how old some of our universities are, they're really quite new. So this includes University of Stirling, Dundee, Heriot-Watt University, and the University of Strathclyde. These tend to offer a mixture, focusing on sort of some of the more traditional subjects as well, but also often offering some of sort of the more innovative technological courses that you'll find elsewhere. And then lastly, we have the modern universities. So as I said, these typically are like the post-92 ones within England. So you've got the University of the Highlands and Islands with an excellent shot of how beautiful that part of Scotland is there. Edinburgh Napier University, Robert Gordon University, which is in Aberdeen, and also Abertay University, which is in Dundee. And as I said, a lot of these offer sort of more modern technological focused courses as well. So I think I now pass on to Kirsten, where she will cover the Scottish degree structure I've said so much about.
Thank you very much, Charlie. So yes, as Charlie mentioned, I'm going to talk to you about the Scottish undergraduate degree structure. One of the reasons for this is that out of the three of us, I am the only one who is actually Scottish and studied in Scotland. So I can definitely attest to how useful that undergraduate structure is and how much it can be incredibly beneficial being a 4-year undergraduate instead of a 3-year undergraduate. However, just to make sure that you are aware that in many cases, advanced entry to year 2 and possibly year 3 can be an option at the different universities, particularly for students who have really strong A-levels, IB, or even the American curriculum. So it is something that we can consider. So just to keep that in mind. In terms of study abroad, having that 4-year degree as well does allow for a lot of opportunity to study abroad and still maintain the really high levels of education and getting the most out of the academic side of the programme too. Lots of flexibility to transfer both between different courses, and I'll explain that in a moment, as well as to other institutions. We do often have students transfer from maybe a start of an English degree up to Scotland so that's possibility too, and work experience options. So this can be built into programs. We have a lot of degrees across Scotland that do have placement years, for example, and even actually the extra year giving an extra summer for students to gather more work experience, do internships and that kind of thing. So typical undergraduate degree program would be 4 years instead of 3 years. But this offers students the opportunity to have a breadth of knowledge and research and getting to grips with lots of different subjects in the early years of their degree. And then that depth and more focus comes in as they actually go through their degree program. And then finally, at their senior honours year, that's when it gets really focused. There's a lot of flexibility with that structure, and I will definitely highlight that in a moment, as well as graduation and employment rights. This is because students aren't as tied to their specific degree right from the beginning. And also the 4 years gives them a lot of opportunity to take in new skills, new subjects, and really individualize their experience and their knowledge for when they actually do graduate and go into the workforce. So here is a standard example of an undergraduate degree. This would be for a student who is doing a single honours degree, and I'll talk about a joint honours later too. So typically in your first year for many programs, especially within arts and humanities, you would take 3 different subjects. So for example, this potential student has chosen history as their main subject. That's probably what they'd applied for. And then they have taken English as their second subject and psychology. When they've gone into year 2, they have continued with their history degree. They have continued with English also. And then they've actually dropped psychology and taken up archaeology for a year, just to get some experience in that field. When they've gone into their junior honours year, that's year 3, that's when they've decided they want to do a single honours degree and have continued on for history for the final 2 years. But this means that they have actually had exposure to psychology and all of the different skills that are associated with that, as well as having the opportunity to look at something like archaeology, which may have been a passion for their entire lives, but not something they could commit to a full degree in. So that's definitely one of the benefits. And honestly, for me, the easiest way to explain how fantastically useful this flexible degree structure can be is telling you exactly how I studied. So I'd actually applied for university to study English literature. And my 2 additional subjects were psychology, because I'd never studied it before, but I always found it fascinating. And then I took politics as my 3rd subject. And I can honestly tell you it was not a good reason. I only chose it because it let me have a Friday free in my timetable. But actually, once I started studying at university, I didn't enjoy English like I did at school. And actually, politics was really interesting when I could choose my modules and really get engaged in it. And I did love psychology right from the beginning. So when I went into year 2, due to the structure, I actually was able to drop English, which was what I'd applied for in the first place. I then took sociology for a year because it was more aligned with both psychology and politics. When I completed my 2nd year, I actually loved both my major subjects, psychology and politics. So that's what I chose to do, a joint honours degree in psychology and politics. One of the ways that students do combine, and something Charlie has touched on, is the opportunity to combine subjects and really do some interdisciplinary work. So a lot of students, such as myself, who did a joint honours degree, will really combine their 2 majors, as it would be noted in the USA, and I tied those together in my dissertation. So my dissertation was looking at how people learn to like and dislike different colours, and tying that into a lot of Scottish policy to do with football violence and those type of things. So you can see a lot of opportunities for mixing things together and not actually being tied to that subject that you first initially start, because there can be a huge jump and a huge difference between university and school levels. I can honestly say I probably wouldn't have enjoyed my time at university had I been stuck with English literature from the beginning, but our subjects and our structure really allowed me to explore my options. One other really good option for this is when parents maybe have a differing opinion from the students on what they should study, and maybe a student is more into music or something like that, but their parents want them to do a more business-focused degree or something. This is a really good way for them to find compromise also. And although our undergraduate structure is different from the rest of the UK, our master's is still typically a one-year programme, and they are highly specialised. Many of us also have conversion courses in different areas. For example, I know that my institution has conversion courses who take students from any different background into more data-aligned subjects. We typically have a lot of links to industry, as well as some of those high graduation and employment rates. I will just note as well that whilst we do have, that flexible structure, which is fantastic, some more vocational and more specialised degrees might not offer that same level of flexibility. Things like law, some engineering and medicine, for example, they probably will not allow that same flexibility. And I'm going to hand over to Chris to talk about the University of Edinburgh.
Hey, thanks, Kirsten. Yeah, so we'll just do a quick kind of overview of our three universities now. So starting with me, I'm from the University of Edinburgh. We are, as was pointed out, one of the ancient universities in Scotland, teaching since the 1500s, which rather ironically makes us the youngest of the ancient universities within Scotland. We are generally quite well known. We're relatively high ranking, normally in the kind of top 20 or 30 in the world, and one of the larger universities in the UK. So we have somewhere between 45 and 50,000 students each year from a huge variety of countries. But that does mean that we have the ability to teach a really wide array of subjects. So kind of around 400 different degree options taught within 21 different academic schools. And this means that really we're able to provide options for students from anything from humanities, social sciences, into STEM subjects, medicine, veterinary sciences, and a few other areas there. Lots of interesting developments at the university throughout our history. So things like the first animal to be cloned in the world, Dolly the sheep, was done at the University of Edinburgh, along with a lot of other really kind of groundbreaking and world-changing discoveries. Particularly with Turkey, that does mean that we're a very popular choice for students, and we do receive a lot of applications. And for that reason, we mostly look for students to have completed some form of international or kind of subject-specific qualifications for undergraduate entry. So that is mostly A-levels, IB, or the US APs. For entry. We wouldn't take Turkish high school for undergraduate students. We would require them to go via a foundation program. We do have our own in-house foundation course within the university, but we'll also look at other ones such as Kaplan Study Group into anything like that on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, Kirsten?
It's me, I'm back.
Yeah, Charlie.
So about the University of Glasgow. So we are the second oldest of the ancient universities in Scotland. And we have quite a unique sort of setup. So we have a campus, but it is part of the city. So everything the students need is all in one place, but you're still sort of surrounded by the city. Much like Edinburgh, we're typically quite well ranked. So we come in the top 100 in the world with both QS and Times Higher Education. And they both also rank us in the top 20 in the world for sustainability as well. We were the 2024 Scottish University of the Year with the Times and Sunday Times. And I think we're the second largest university in Scotland after Edinburgh, with sort of 40 to 45,000 students from over 140 different countries. Very similar to Edinburgh again. I'm saying Edinburgh a lot in this part of my presentation. We have quite a broad offering of subjects. So we have arts and humanities, social sciences, life sciences, and the rest of science, as well as engineering, And then we have our professional degrees as well. So these include the medical related degrees, accountancy and finance, and law as well. Within undergraduate, the degree mixtures we mentioned, we offer over 600 different combinations of subjects. Our strongest ones generally are nursing, dentistry, law, engineering, and computing science. So we do accept the Turkish high school diploma for entry. So typically a minimum of 75% overall, with 80% in specific required subjects for the course. We also accept sort of the IB with between 32 and 38, and any American high school diplomas generally requiring an average of at least 3.5 in those. For acceptance onto a master's degree, students usually need to have a CGPA of at least 2.8 out of 4, or the equivalent, from a recognized university within Turkey. And English, usually we look for an IELTS of 6.5 with none of the skills below 6. Asterisk is there to remind me to say that that is a minimum, and some courses will require a higher grade, but all of those will be detailed on the individual course pages. And then we have merit-based scholarships of up to £7,000 for every undergraduate student is eligible to apply for. And then similarly for postgraduate students, merit-based scholarships of up to £10,000 as well. And I will now pass back to Kirsten.
Thank you, Charlie. So yes, just to talk about the University of Stirling. Of the three of us today, I am by far the youngest institution, as we were founded in 1967. And for Scotland, that is quite young. But we do have an absolutely fantastic campus. So Stirling itself is a city in Scotland, and our university is right on the edge of the city. We have been ranked as top 5 in the world for a campus environment, and we're also Scotland's University for Sporting Excellence. That means we have a variety of courses within the sports field that are fantastic, as well as currently having 8 of Team GB's Olympians that currently study with us, because our facilities are absolutely fantastic. In terms of strength of programme, our major areas right now would be things related to data, that's AI, big data, analytics type programs. Within business, finance and marketing programs are a real strength. Environmental management is something we do, and that does include quite niche subjects such as aquaculture, public health, as well as media studies and media management. So whilst we don't have engineering or things like medicine, we do have a really broad range of subjects and really good strengths in those, as well as actually, honestly, our campus is just stunning, and I love actually working on that type of campus. In terms of our academic requirements, we do also accept Turkish high school qualifications for direct entry, and which would be 75% overall and 80% in any specific subject requirement areas. So that's occasionally maths or math-related subjects, or English. That would be those type of requirements. For entry into our master's programs, we're looking at a GPA of 2.7 from a recognised Turkish university. And for the majority of our courses, we'll be looking for an IELTS or equivalent of 6 with no score below 5.5. Similarly to Charlie here, the asterisk is to remind me that we do have a few courses that do have a higher IELTS requirement. That would be things such as our TESOL programs and a few other ones, and that's to do with the accreditations of those courses. For finance, I will say that Stirling is one of the more affordable cities within the UK, and we have on-campus and off-campus accommodation starting from around £100 per week, including utilities. For undergraduate from Turkey, we have a £2,000 per year automatic scholarship for any Turkish students who are self-funding who are joining us. And at master's level, there's opportunity to apply for the Be the Difference scholarship, which is worth up to £7,000. There is an application for that, but it is quite straightforward. So I know we have given you quite a whistle tour of each of our institutions, and we do encourage you to have a little look at more depth via our websites and things. But I'm now just going to pass over to Chris and talk a little bit more about some of the details of Scotland and application, etc.
Thanks, Kirsten. Yeah, a few last slides from me, but I'll try and be quite brisk with these so we have time for some questions at the end. Looking at accommodation, as you would expect, each university within Scotland will have its own accommodation offering. As Charlie and Kirsten have both touched on, there is quite a variety in terms of universities, locations and setups within Scotland. So you will find some are campus based, whereas some will be in the middle of relatively large cities. I say relatively because it's nothing compared to Istanbul, but for the UK, some quite big cities, which means some will be able to offer accommodation that is very, very close to teaching buildings, and some that will be a little bit more spread out. Each university will have their own website for their accommodation, and that's really the place for detail. But the core element is just to remember that everyone will have something on offer, but they can vary quite a lot, both in terms of cost and location, particularly relative to the kind of teaching parts of the university. Visas and immigration can always be one that is quite concerning for students. Trying to explain the UK's political makeup and how each of the kind of countries of the UK works is always a slightly mind-boggling process and quite unique to anywhere else. But the core thing to remember is that a visa for Scotland is exactly the same as coming to England, Wales or Northern Ireland. It is the same process, and students get access to the same kind of rights and same kind of freedoms of movement as they would do going to England or anywhere else. So each university will have its own set of kind of fees and scholarships, as you would expect. And students will go through the standard student UK visa route. If they have a visa to come to a university in Scotland, they can, of course, as I say, travel around, go to London, go to other parts of England and the UK without any kind of differences there. Equally, they can apply for the graduate route visa at the end of their studies in the same way as a student anywhere else in the UK. So it is very much the same process. There aren't any differences. It's not a different visa because they are coming to Scotland as opposed to going to England, Wales or Northern Ireland. And in terms of the student experience, Scotland is quite unique for this. As much as we talk about kind of sports and societies that you will hear at every university, Scotland having its own cultural identity and having that kind of that slightly unique profile means that they do get a slightly different experience living in Scotland. So part of this can be some of the festivals that go on. So Glasgow is known as a kind of festival city and has a huge amount that happen throughout the year there. Edinburgh obviously has the Edinburgh Festival, the largest performing arts festival in the world, that absolutely takes over the city. And all of these are quite unique within the kind of Scottish identity. So they are bits that are very much linked to being in Scotland. In the same way that some of the other kind of activities students can do are there. One of the great benefits to Scotland is the variety of its kind of landscape. So you can see there are chances for students to kind of go skiing within Scotland up into the mountains, and then within a few hours to be down on a beach somewhere on the east coast. Probably not the warmest beach, but still a chance to be by the sea. So there's a real kind of diversity in what they can get out and do. Again, within that, there is that unique Scottish culture. So the thing that I always enjoy is finding international students that have come and studied in Scotland and picked up random Scottish words. There's nothing more identifying than hearing a Turkish student back in Istanbul using the word "we" for something small, and instantly you know they've been to Scotland, they've spent some time there, they've picked up part of that culture, and it really helps build bonds with alumni. Whether they are alumni from their same university or just other parts of Scotland, and being part of that kind of wider international Scottish community. We do some very kind of unique events for them. So, for instance, the British Council run some programs for some of the scholars there, so people that have things like great scholarships, women in STEM scholarships, and we bring together all of our Scottish recipients of those kind of awards for big networking events, and kind of gala dinners that they get to attend to, again, give them quite a unique experience and something that is part of being a international student in Scotland, rather than just in the UK. I will wrap up now just by saying these are our contact details, so please do feel free to reach out to us if you have anything more you'd like to know about any of the topics we've talked about so far. But equally, if you're trying to get in touch with anyone else in Scotland, we always work very collaboratively, and we're quite happy to kind of make connections where we can. That's a bit of a flyover of everything, but we will, if we've got any time left, we will be happy to take any questions that you might have.